He asked her to step aside, just a simple, firm request from a guard in a dark suit. But there was something in his eyes that made her freeze. It wasn't suspicion. It was recognition. And in that moment, she realized he had figured out the secret she'd been trying so hard to hide. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and how old are you? And let me ask you this. What would you do if the one man you trusted to protect you suddenly became the man who could expose everything? Would you run, or let the truth unravel right in front of him? She stood there in that marble lobby, dressed like any other woman hoping to marry into the quiet comfort of an older gentleman's life. But beneath the simple cardigan, the modest skirt, the thrift store purse, she was a billionaire. A hidden one. A woman who had everything except what she actually wanted. A good senior man with a kind heart, somebody who would choose her for her soul, not her bank account. And that's why she disguised herself. That's why she hid her last name. That's why she told no one except her attorney and her assistant, who she trusted like family. You could almost hear her heartbeat echo in that giant room. The guard, Ethan, stepped closer. Tan, chiseled face, late 30s, steady eyes that could read a person faster than they could speak. He wasn't just any guard. He was the head of private security for the estate, where she was meeting the man she'd been quietly seeing for months. Charles, a retired architect in his 70s with a gentle laugh and a slow, thoughtful way of speaking. She genuinely liked him. And maybe that's why she was scared, because real feelings make lies heavier. Ethan had never trusted easily. She saw that in the way he scanned every corner before allowing her to walk, in the way he opened doors but never softened his guard-like posture. But lately, he had been watching her differently, not with suspicion, with curiosity, as if trying to understand why a woman who claimed to work part-time at a floral shop wore shoes crafted by an Italian designer that most people couldn't pronounce. Or why her hands carried the softness of someone who never lifted anything heavier than a fountain pen. "What's in the bag?" Ethan asked now, his voice low. She blinked. "Just personal things." He motioned toward it. "Open it." Her breath caught, because inside that purse, hidden under tissues and an old paperback novel, was a folder, one she wasn't supposed to have with her at all. Her financial records, documents from her attorney, proof of who she really was. She had planned to leave them in the car, but when Charles called and asked if she could arrive earlier, she'd rushed out without thinking. If Ethan opened that purse and saw the embossed logo of her company, the lie was over. Charles would find out. Everyone would. She hesitated just 1 second too long, and Ethan noticed. His hand moved to his radio. "Ma'am, step over here." Her stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt cold. She whispered, "Please, don't do this." He studied her almost gently. "Why are you so nervous? What aren't you telling me?" It wasn't anger in his voice. It was something else, something she couldn't name. Almost protective. Almost like he already knew and just wanted her to admit it to herself. You ever look at someone and feel them peeling back layers you didn't even mean to show? That's exactly what this felt like. She wished she could explain everything, but she was terrified. Not of losing her secret, but of losing Charles. Losing the first man who made her laugh without calculating what she was worth. She opened the purse slowly, fingers trembling, but right before Ethan could reach for the folder, another voice echoed from the stairs. "Ethan, that's enough." Charles's nephew, Grant, descended the steps. A sharp, arrogant man in his early 40s, always dressed like he was auditioning for the role of heir. He smirked when he saw her, and she felt something cold slide down her spine. Grant never liked her, not because he suspected anything, but because she threatened his influence over his uncle. "She's with my uncle," Grant said casually. "Let her through. She's harmless." Ethan didn't move. If anything, he looked even more certain that something wasn't right. "Protocol says..." "Protocol," Grant snapped, "is for people who belong here. She barely meets the dress code." He gave her a look that made her feel like she was shrinking. "Let her pass." Something tightened in Ethan's jaw, but he stepped back, She walked forward, clutching her purse like a shield, and as she passed him, Ethan whispered, so quietly she almost thought she imagined it. "You need to be careful around him." She froze, not because of the warning, but because of the way he said it. Soft, concerned, like he wasn't trying to expose her, but protect her. But from what? Or from who? When she entered the upstairs lounge where Charles waited, she tried to act normal. He smiled warmly, stood up slowly, kissed her cheek, and asked how her day had been. She answered, but the words came out shaky. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Kind men always do. "What's troubling you?" he asked gently. She opened her mouth to speak, but the door shut behind her a little too loudly, and she flinched. Ethan wasn't there anymore, but the feeling of danger lingered, heavy and sharp. Charles reached for her hands, but before she could place hers in his, a sudden alarm went off downstairs. Loud, piercing, urgent. She and Charles locked eyes, panic flickering in both. Seconds later, Ethan's voice crackled through the house intercom. "All staff secure positions. Grant, stay where you are. Do not move." Charles whispered, "What on earth is happening?" But she already knew, or at least she feared the truth, because the alarm that sounded, it wasn't a fire alarm, it wasn't a security test. It was a silent trigger alarm used only during internal breaches, when someone inside the estate had been caught doing something they weren't supposed to. And she had a sinking feeling Ethan's warning wasn't about her being exposed. It was about Grant. But what had he done? And how did Ethan know? Charles stood, shaky but determined. "Stay here. I'll go see what—" "No," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "Let Ethan handle it." But before Charles could respond, the lounge door swung open and Grant stepped inside, breathing hard, eyes wild. He slammed the door behind him and locked it. And in his hand was her purse. Grant's fingers tightened around the straps of her purse like he'd found a weapon instead of a handbag. His chest rose and fell with sharp, frantic breaths, and for a moment, no one spoke. The alarm still wailed faintly through the walls, muffled but urgent, like the whole house was holding its breath with them. Charles looked confused, concerned, and far too trusting of his nephew, while she felt every fear she had fought so hard to bury claw its way to the surface. Grant pointed at her with the purse like it was proof of a crime. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he hissed. "Coming here, fooling my uncle, pretending to be someone you're not." She swallowed hard. "Grant, give me my bag." His laugh was sharp, ugly. "You hid this under the stairwell when you realized Ethan was on to you. Too bad he's an even better tracker than you thought." Charles stepped forward, lifting a hand as if he could smooth the chaos back into place. "Grant, what's going on? Why are you holding her things?" Grant ignored him and turned back to her. "I knew there was something off about you, and now I know why." He reached into the purse and pulled out the folder, the one she feared most. "Care to explain why a woman who says she works part-time at a floral shop has financial records worth more than our entire estate?" Charles's face drained of color. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. She whispered, "I can explain." "No," Grant snapped. "You can't, because liars don't get explanations." Ethan's voice suddenly sounded through the speaker again, calmer now, more controlled. "Grant Matthews, unlock the door, right now." Grant flinched, realizing Ethan had the room mic'd. "Stay out of this," he shouted. "She's a fraud, Uncle Charles. She's hunting for a rich older man to prey on, and you—" He pointed at Charles, trembling with something that almost looked like desperation. "You were going to hand her everything." Charles shook his head slowly. "Son, this isn't the way." Grant barked out a humorless laugh. "Of course it's the way, because I'm the one who actually cares about what happens to you. Not her, not Ethan, me." The words landed heavy, but there was something strange in them too, something that didn't sound like love, but fear. As if Grant wasn't just scared of her secret, he was scared of losing something else entirely. She took a small step forward, her voice soft. "Grant, what are you so afraid of?" His jaw clenched. For a moment she saw a flicker of guilt, then he shook his head violently. stop talking. But Charles was watching him more closely now, eyes narrowing with a kind of quiet, heartbreaking clarity. Grant, what have you done? Grant's eyes darted away, and that was enough. Charles reached for the doorknob like he finally understood the alarm wasn't about her at all, and Grant panicked. Uncle, don't! He lunged, grabbing Charles's wrist too hard. She rushed forward on instinct, pulling Grant away. He stumbled back, and the folder slipped from his grip, papers spilling across the carpet like scattered pieces of truth. Grant stared at her, breathing hard, and whispered, "You ruined everything." Before she could answer, the door burst open behind him, Ethan storming in with two other guards. They pinned Grant before he could even process what was happening. She saw the exact moment his fight faded. His shoulders slumped, his head bowed, and in his eyes, defeat. Ethan looked at her first, checking her over like she mattered more than the chaos. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to find words. But the shake was enough for Ethan to finally exhale, tension leaving his shoulders. Charles stared at the papers on the floor, then up at her with eyes full of questions. Not anger, not betrayal, just pain. Why didn't you tell me who you are?" Her voice broke. "Because I didn't want you to see the money first. I wanted you to see me." Charles took a slow breath. "I did see you, but secrets..." His voice faltered. "Secrets have a way of hurting everyone around them." Ethan cleared his throat quietly. "Sir, before you judge her too quickly, you need to know something." He held up a small black device, a flash drive. "We found this in Grant's study. It contains recordings, financial logs, emails, proof he's been moving funds out of your accounts for months. He triggered the internal alarm when he tried wiping the servers tonight." Her mouth fell open. Charles staggered back slightly. Grant squeezed his eyes shut in defeat. Ethan continued. "He went after her because he needed someone to blame, someone to redirect your suspicion." Grant whispered, "I didn't mean to lose everything. I just wanted security." Charles's eyes softened with heartbreak. "You could have asked me." Grant didn't respond. The guards escorted him away quietly, leaving the room too still, too raw. She knelt down, picking up the papers that revealed her truth piece by piece. Charles watched her hands tremble. Ethan moved beside them, stopping her gently. "Leave them," he said softly. "You've carried this weight long enough." She stared at Ethan, surprised at the warmth in his voice, at the way he seemed to understand her fear better than anyone. But Charles stepped closer, looking at her like he was seeing both her disguise and her truth at the same time. "I don't know what to think," he admitted. "I care about you deeply, but I need to know everything. Not the story you think I want to hear. The truth." She nodded slowly. "I'll tell you, all of it." But before she could speak, Ethan's radio crackled again. "We need you downstairs," a guard said. "Grant is demanding to speak with her. He says he won't talk unless she comes." She felt a chill move through her every drop of blood. Charles looked alarmed. Ethan's expression hardened instantly. He whispered, "You don't have to face him, not alone." But she knew this moment was coming. The confrontation, the truth Grant thought he could twist. She steadied herself and whispered, "Take me to him." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. They walked toward the elevator. Charles stayed behind, conflicted and hurting, yet hoping for answers he wasn't sure he wanted. As the elevator doors closed, Ethan whispered, "Before we go in there, what you should know. Grant didn't just steal money." She looked up at him, heart pounding. "What else did he do?" Ethan's eyes darkened, filled with something she had never seen in him before. He said, "He knew your secret long before today, and he wasn't planning to expose you." The elevator stopped. He was planning to use it. The doors slid open to reveal Grant waiting in a chair, hands cuffed, and a single folder sitting on the table in front of him. Her name printed across the front in bold letters. Her real name, her true identity, and the one thing she prayed no one inside this house would ever discover. Grant lifted his head slowly. "I think it's time we talk," he said. "If you were her, would you walk in?"